Shifting focus now, the NASA on Tuesday has termed Mission Shakti a terrible thing because it created about 400 pieces of orbital debris endangering the International Space Station. NASA Administrator Jim Bridenstine has said that 60 pieces have been tracked so far, and out of which 24 are going above the apogee of the ISS. Now, Bridenstine was addressing the employees of NASA days after Prime Minister Modi announced that India shot down a satellite in space with a missile catapulting the country into the elite club of space powers along the US, Russia and China. In fact, let me get in further perspective on this. I'm joined by Dr. P.K. Ghosh, a space strategist on the phone line. Good morning, Dr. Ghosh. Many thanks for joining us on this broadcast. Your first thoughts on NASA being very, very critical about India's Mission Shakti and in fact going ahead and calling it a terrible thing.
Good morning. I think this has been a concern for most of the space watchers and scientists right from the time the test was announced. This is going to be a natural consequence of any ASAT test that is carried out. Even when the Chinese carried it out in 2007, we had a case in which nearly 3,000 pieces of space debris was created. And, they keep almost orbiting and they go at phenomenal speeds, which is going to be a threat for any satellite that operates within that band of orbits. So this is going to be a problem with any ASAT. And if I may say, the U.S. earlier too, the U.S. Secretary of Defense, Patrick, had said that let's not make a mess. And the same the NASA administrator, when he had spoken to the House Appropriation Committee, had said that the consequences of this are long-lasting. So this is going to be a problem, and it's a serious problem. And I really don't know what to say more about it. This is a problem. And by the way, the 400 pieces is just a NASA estimate. There are others who have estimated that there are in excess of 2,500 pieces, depending upon the size. Yes.
All right, Mr. Ghosh, if you can help us, if I can help our viewers understand, putting this into perspective, in what way does this endanger the International Space Station as you were talking about?
Yeah, you see, any of this debris, firstly, the speeds, to put it in very layman terms, the speeds that we are talking of is, say, about 17,000 miles per hour, at which these objects are moving. That is, the International Space Station is also moving at phenomenal speeds. So if, I don't know, if you've seen the movie Gravity, you would see that even a small little piece of space debris can actually act like a bullet, because of the speeds involved. And that can really wreck a lot of the systems that are there. So these phenomenal number of small pieces and big pieces which orbit the Earth, they are debris, they can affect not only the International Space Station, but any of the satellites which go onto this. And that is why it's a big concern. Of course, the United States has been tracking them, has been trying to remove some of the debris, and there's a big debate going on this. But because of the speeds involved, there are, it's not good for the satellites and any of the stations that are doing the orbiting.
But Mr. Ghosh, there's another question that is really coming to everyone's mind at this point. Mr. Ghosh, there's another question that's coming in. Considering the fact that we are the fourth country after US, China and Russia to have such a mechanism, to have such technology, wouldn't these countries in the past have done a similar aspect to test their technology and then be in a position that...
Yes, I told you about the Chinese. Yes, that is very much true. And the space debris is a big issue. But at that time, even nuclear tests were carried out by the United States and erstwhile Soviet Union. But then it didn't create that much of a hullabaloo. And now, if any of the countries carry it out, there's much more awareness. So obviously, I told you the case of the Chinese, 3,000 pieces. I'm sure when they carried out their test, that is the Americans and the Soviet Union and Russia, the same thing was there. But now people are much more aware. Many more satellites are going into the space. I mean, every small country wants to have its satellites, and most of them are in the low orbit. This is what we destroyed. I mean, there's a saying that it might be a Microsoft R which we destroyed. So in case that is true, I don't know if it is true. The amount of debris that it would have created. Yes. Yes, please.
All right, Dr. Ghosh, request you to stay with us. Let's quickly listen into one of the reactions that are coming in from the NASA administrator.
That kind of activity is not compatible with the future of human spaceflight that we need to see have happen. We are charged with commercializing low Earth orbit. We are charged with enabling more activities in space than we've ever seen before for the purpose of benefiting the human condition. And when one country does it, then other countries feel like they have to do it as well. It's unacceptable, and NASA needs to be very clear about what its impact to us is. The risk to the International Space Station was increased by 44%. We need to be clear with everybody in the world. We're the only agency in the federal government that has human lives at stake here. And it is not acceptable for us to allow people to create orbital debris fields that put at risk our people.
Let me get in a quick perspective here. Dr. P.K. Ghosh continues to be with us on the phone line. Dr. Ghosh, you just heard a reaction there coming in from Jim Bridenstine, the NASA administrator, calling it a terrible thing, also putting out a rather larger concern of how it could affect human lives. Now, when this mission was really undertaken, when there was in the planning stage and it was finally executed, wouldn't you agree, Dr. Ghosh, perhaps these factors, all the factors would have be taken into consideration by the scientists who then went ahead with this mission?
You're talking of Mission Shakti, isn't it? You're talking of Mission Shakti? Yeah. Yeah, I suppose so.
Yes, Dr. Ghosh, yes.
I suppose they would have taken this into account. But then, like as is well known, we probably had the ASAT capability from 2012. So before one goes in for any such testing, there is pros and cons. A cost-benefit analysis is always done, and it's only then that one goes ahead with the test after the political approval is received. So this is a political decision to go ahead, and so I don't think I'm competing to sort of comment on that. But I'm sure this is a standard thing. You do a cost-benefit analysis and you try and find out what are going to be the cons. And this is the biggest thing of any ASAT test, creation of debris. That is a problem.
All right, we'll have to leave it there. Appreciate you, Dr. P.K. Ghosh, for joining us this morning and sharing your perspective on this entire thing with NASA coming out and slamming Mission Shakti, calling it a terrible thing.